This week we're laying a lot of foundational work before we get into reading 60 days of devotions together. We went over what is the Enneagram, what is your type like, more info about that type, even more in-depth information, and then why should I embark on 60 days of devotions. This is really important for you guys all to go through together so that we have all the same language and verbiage about the Enneagram, what it is, as well as learning a little bit more about your specific type to share with each other. Now, you guys might be in a group where there's multiple people of the same number, and that is super cool. You guys are going to be able to not only learn about yourselves, but also help each other learn about your similar number. But there's also probably other people in this group that have different types, and I would encourage you that if there are many types missing from your group, so say that you mostly have 2s and 4s and 6s. If one of you is like married to a 5, or your boss is an 8, or your mother is a 1, things like that, if you could approach them during this study and ask them some questions that your group leader is asking you, I think that will really help to enrich and deepen this study so that we are not only just learning about ourselves, but we are also learning about other people. I always tell people that you are not really getting the full goal of the Enneagram if you are just learning about one type, which is yourself, or even 2 or 3 types, like of yourself, your spouse, and your best friends. To really understand the Enneagram and reap all of the benefits that it can help you with, you're really going to need to learn about all 9 types because all of us have something in common with another type. And so I know some of you guys reading these first 4 chapters, you might not know what your Enneagram type is, and that's totally okay. And so when it's talking about like you and your type and things like that, I know you might have felt a little bit left out and maybe a little confused. So when you are reading these chapters and you are diving in, I want to encourage you that even if this is not your Enneagram number, if this doesn't end up being correct, you are still learning about someone you know. All of us know someone who is every single Enneagram type. We just don't have the language, and maybe they don't have the self-awareness to be able to understand that about each other, but we do know someone that is of each and every type. So let's kind of go over a little bit about what you guys learned before you guys talk about it together. So in the beginning, we learned about what's the Enneagram. We learned about why is it different than Myers-Briggs and the DISC assessment, which are all really good personality things as well. Like how fluid is it, and what does that mean? What do arrows mean? How do you find your type? How does type develop? Is this journey worth it? We learn all those sorts of things, and we also learn about like what each of the types' names are and what they're motivated by, and that the Enneagram is not only about behaviors, it's about motivations behind those behaviors, which us, especially in Western culture, are really bad at understanding because we are very much behavioral people as a culture and not very much into motivations, which can make it hard to find your Enneagram type, honestly. Then we went into what is your Enneagram type, like more about this. So each one of the devotionals starts out with a story of someone who is that type. If you're reading the 4 devotional, you're reading about my story. If you're reading the 1 devotional, you're reading about my husband, Peter. If you're reading the 6 devotional, you're reading about my little sister, Sarah. If you're reading the 2 devotional, you're reading about my friend, Christine. All these people are people I know. They're all people in my life, and it was such a joy to be able to interview them more personally about their story. And so I hope you enjoyed that story. I hope you related to it in some way. You had kind of an aha moment with that person and kind of what they experienced and went through. And then we went into like, okay, how would you describe this type? And I pulled from kind of how are they when they're healthy, how are they when they're more average, which is where most of us hang out, and then how are they when they're unhealthy, to kind of cover the spectrum of what this number can be like. Because obviously we can all be very different. I wish I could give you 30 examples of each type because I think that would really help you grasp how vastly different these people can be. But I'll give you one story and then try to give you kind of the spectrum of health. So don't stick onto those unhealthy qualities if you are this number and be discouraged by them. Being unhealthy is really just a state of which you can grow out of. You are not stuck in unhealth even if you eventually went there or you've been there before, anything like that. So don't let that discourage you about what your type is. And then we went into more detailed information about what your type is. We went into like, what triad are they? What wings can they have? What subtypes can they have? What are their childhood wounds and childhood lost messages? Like all these other theories about the Enneagram, I'm giving you those like tidbits of information about this type just to kind of give you a fuller picture. So like with 5s, you're going to learn that they are part of the head triad. You're going to learn that like they're motivated by competency. You're going to learn that they can have a 4 or a 6 wing and what their subtypes look like. And that might help further confirm for you what your type is, or it might teach you something new about your type, or it might help you confirm that that's not your type at all. Still really good information to have about that specific type though, so you can learn more in depth about them. And then probably one of my favorite parts of the devotional, talking about why would you embark on 60 days of devotionals. And in that chapter, I talk about sanctification and about how many Enneagram teachers tell you to focus on yourself when you're learning about the Enneagram. And they see the problem, because that's really what the Enneagram does. The Enneagram shines a light on a problem, and the problem is you. And everything about your personality that's hard is also things about your personality that's good. Like for me as a 4, part of my personality is that I'm creative. That creativity is good. It's a gift from God, but it's also where I get tripped up because it can become my identity, and it can become an area of my life where I start to be envious of other people who are creative and things like that. So the best part of me is also the worst part. That's true for pretty much every Enneagram type. And so you need to be really careful who you're listening to, who is teaching you about the Enneagram, because yes, the Enneagram will shine a spotlight on a part of you and say, this isn't great. This is a hole. Something's missing. You're going after things that are not filling you. And if you are listening to someone who does not have a Christian perspective, they're going to tell you, yes, you have a problem, but the answer is you. You can be your own savior. You just need to focus on yourself. You need to meditate. You need to put yourself first. All those things. And as Christians, that's not our viewpoint. We look at that hole and we go, yeah, that's a hole that is perfect size for Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross for you. We look at that and we say, yeah, of course, we live in a fallen world. We're sinful. But we know the answer. We know the answer to our problem, and that's Jesus. And so, yes, we have more to work on. Yes, there are areas of our life that we are not happy with and that we are struggling with, and the Enneagram can help you see more clearly what some of those areas are so that you can turn and repent, and that you can change and you can become more like Jesus. But it also will encourage you in the ways of which you already are reflecting him and you already are showing him to the world. It's kind of the cool part of, that best things also being the worst things. We are made in the image of God, which is something that we're going to talk about next week. And so we do reflect him, and there are parts of your personality that are good because of that. And so talking about sanctification, we're talking about how do we change? How do we grow? And that is the work of Christ in your life. To help you have this supernatural growth, to grow out of this human state that we all have, and to grow. And so that's what we're looking at with the Enneagram. We're looking at this whole, we're looking at these problems, and we're saying, okay, Jesus, how do you want us to grow? How can we be sanctified specifically here? And that is how these devotionals are formatted, is to be asking those questions of Jesus, to be walking hand in hand with him, knowing our specific problems and the specific areas where we tend to have pain points. And also to look at him and be like, okay, God, how do I already look like you, and how am I reflecting you to the world? Like, is there somewhere you can encourage me in that as well? And so we kind of go back and forth in devotionals. We have 1 week where we're 1 10-day period where we're encouraging you, and then we have 1 10-day period where we're going into something a little harder, a little deeper. And so as you kind of go up and down on this encouragement and conviction, just hold on, because there is good work to be done there, both in the encouragement and in the conviction. Don't get stuck on a conviction time and quit reading. Keep going. There's more encouragement to be found. There's more conviction, but all of it is work to God's glory, right? So that's what's coming up. Those are the 4 chapters you read together. So as you all are gathering now and having read those 4 chapters together, your group leader is going to have some questions where you guys can go over those together, learn more about each other, and ultimately encourage each other in the sanctification that Jesus has for you.